short and sharp. A few things to talk about. I want to go to the Hawks first and foremost. I reckon they are the hardest running team in the competition. We saw that they were overrun by the Giants last week, but that's no surprise. So I think they've nearly mirrored the Giants in the way that they go about it. Their high forwards is their superpower. They run really hard. Their running backs, their wingers, they all get involved, and I think they are the most comfortable team with ball in hand. And Hawks Radio were loving what they saw on the weekend. How good are the Hawks going? They would have been bitterly disappointed with their first 5 minutes in the last quarter against the Giants last week, but to me, the thing that stands out to me is when they have ball in hand, they have absolutely no fear of what the opposition are going to do to them. If there's fierce pressure or a tackle, it looks like they've done a whole heap of grappling work, a whole heap of tackling, for and against. There's no stress, no anxiety at all around the pressure that the opposition can put on the ball carrier. Couple of reasons. I think they know that they can stand up in a tackle and handle it. I think they've always got wingmen on either side in terms of a handball target that they can put that player into time and space, and there's always a feedback option if they want to bail out too. They have absolute confidence in their ability to beat the tackle or to handle the tackle. They have absolute confidence in the fact that their teammates are going to turn up to run and carry too. So that confidence alone means that they're really hard to pressure, and they're able to find the next best option as they flow down the field, and that's what we're seeing great evidence of.
Are they the best team in it right now? Are Hawthorn the best team in the AFL right now?
No, I don't think they are.
Who is?
I think the big test for them will come in a final.
They're getting tested week after week.
Yeah, they are. But the big test will come in the final. Can they maintain that composure with the ultimate on the line and a side that's getting after them and hunting them? You need to be a really good pressure side to beat Hawthorn. You need to be a really good pressure side to beat the Giants. What they're doing is compelling. There's not one or two players
They've had
that stand
one bad
out.
week in 14 weeks.
One bad quarter.
Yeah, well, the Geelong game.
The
Geelong game was and largely they're the most consistent team in it with serious weapons. Yeah, the Carlton fours look threatening early, and there's not a lot of height in defence, and we know who they're going after in the off-season for that reason, so maybe you can expose them there, but their big weapon is the running power you speak of and the group of small forwards that they've got that no one else has got.
No, I love the undersized back six because it provides run for you. But then you've got Moore, McDonald, Ginnivan, Watson, McKenzie who came in and
Bruce when he plays.
Yeah, Bruce is there and has been in great form, but had steps back and goes into that sub role just to keep him cherry ripe. They've been coached really well. Chol's jumping out of the ground. Deers, they're two key forwards. Have been a part-timer who's now at a third club who's now making the most of his opportunities, and a 10-gamer in Kalshadir who just keeps getting the job done. Gunston's role on Wiedering was brilliant, and the way Hawthorn moved the ball, it renders a big-bodied intercept defender useless because Wiedering needs a defence that there's pressure on the ball up,
yeah.
and there's a long down the line contest. I mean, he's pretty good in other areas, but I think what Hawthorn are doing is amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the next month or so. And the team that I think they're modelling themselves on, the Giants, and who beat them last week, their performance against the Lions was huge. They've come with a run. To beat the side that I thought was the best performed side of the second half of the year, who was probably the team to beat going into September in the Lions, and they didn't just do it with their senior players, they did it with their young guys, and that would have been great to see. 5 goals from Cadman and Jones. Yep. And like after a really bad 30 minutes, and this is always the question, how does a group that plays that sort of footy in the last 3 quarters play that poorly for a quarter of footy? But to be able to turn it around in game when it's required and then to be able to finish the job was absolutely huge. They've got speed to burn. They're really solid through the midfield. talk about a defence that gives their offence confidence, knowing that if they turn the ball over, Taylor is not. He's a big-bodied intercept marker, but he can play on the ground as well. Buckley's a great foil. Iden, the three of them together, there's not many forward lines that are going to mark their way to winning the game against the Giants, and it's pretty hard to beat them in the run game as well. Their turnover game's been huge, and I thought that they've done it. They did it without Toby Green, 4 touches, well beaten by Brandon Starcevic, as we mentioned before, 7. The Giants are in great nick.
Are they the best team in it? I'm just going to keep going. Are they the best team in it?
Well, it can change week to week, can it not?
No, it can. But, I mean, you'd be pretty excited if you're a Giants fan. Not that there's a stack of Giants fans probably listening to us this morning, but the future with Jones doing that, and then Cadman just looking like he has arrived. You see, look at the shoulders on him. When you finally see them develop into their bodies, his ability to float across.
What's herd factor?
I thought he was so disciplined with the role that they asked him to play, where they got that matchup with Hogan on a Joyce rather than the Harris Andrews one. I want to ask you a bit about that and how that plays out and who gives in first. But you needed Grishevsky playing a disciplined role. You needed Cadman doing the same, 2 young players to allow Hogan to do that. Thought they coached really well. The spray at quarter time, the move of Whitfield forward late was really important as well.
The Grishevsky's like Morris down the other end. They play similar roles. The Giants, the matchups against the Giants forward line or a Hawthorn forward line are nearly a waste of time because they move the ball so swiftly through the midfield. You end up accessing your forward line when you've got a +1 forward. So you could find, Giants do that often, Hawthorn do that often. You can see they enter about 25 metres on a 45-degree angle. They don't often enter to the key because their forwards just spread and pull apart the opposition defence off the back of that midfield movement.
All right, let's get to the biggest story of the weekend, and this is the
this is the biggest negative story.
No, it's the biggest story. It's the biggest story. You got a big club who is one of the premiership favourites. Prelim final last week. They're inside the top 4 for the majority of the season, looking like the challenger to Sydney at one point, and now they find themselves out of the 8. It's the biggest story of the weekend, the Blues.
If you want to look negatively
at
things,
I'm just. Well, what will lead the footy programs tonight? On the couch tonight?
Well, you will decide.
You're sitting
that.
In your production meeting. Well, you will as well. What's going to lead the show tonight? Do you think?
When we do the production meeting, I want to talk about Hawthorn and the Giants.
I bet you start with Carlton.
We could.
Yeah, I bet you do.
You know what? Their injuries have probably saved them some of the fierce reviews that might have come. But Michael Voss was clearly aware of their drop-off in performance in recent times and the fact that they've got the job ahead of them the next couple of weeks. Carlton if you don't have great form and then take a couple of your players out, well then,
so it's going to drop even worse. The majority of the blame on injuries here.
No, okay. No, I'm not. But I'm just saying I don't suspect that Carlton are going to be able to dig themselves out of the situation they've got themselves in.
Do they beat West Coast in Perth this week?
I think they will. Yeah,
it's not an easy one though.
No, it's not an easy one. Well, the Eagles have just won 2 in a row, but then the St Kilda game in the last round looms large for me. I think Collingwood, well beaten by Sydney in that last quarter, but it did a lot right. It just seems to me that if you've had availability issues, you're actually asking the players that are there to stand up and carry a load that is heavier than that they can actually sustain throughout a season. I think that's what's happened to Carlton. It's what's happened to Collingwood, to a lesser extent to Melbourne. And we shouldn't be surprised by when, I think Max Gawn's been playing injured and came back before his time, and he's jaded in some sense. I think Sam Walsh is carrying a back and he's not right. We don't know. All of this is not abundantly evident, other than to say that we've got A-grade talent out there that aren't playing in an A-grade manner or aren't in A-grade form, and it affects sides, and when you get to the pointy end of the year, it makes a massive difference. So I think those three are hobbled.
Decision making at the end of the year. Say if they didn't play finals from a position where they were second on the ladder 7 weeks ago, from a prelim final where they're 5 goals up last year, how composed you have to be at the end of the season with the decisions that you make, and not be
Well,
not be reactive to
well,
this.
this is what you get paid the big bucks for. You've got to work out. Listen, internally, they'll know the parts of the game that they value and the players that are fulfilling their roles. And there'll be some that maybe we think are doing okay from the outside, but they'll move on. It's not just about personnel and your list, but sometimes it is. It might be about something they need to adjust. Carlton just simply aren't defending. They're not defending the midfield well enough. The speed on ball the opposition are getting is sieving their back six. And, to be honest, I think there's some guys in Carlton's back six. McGovern's an attacker playing in the back half, and too often he gets caught out of position. I want to focus on Mac Andrew because he was frustrated early in the game. And that's he's probably learning over the last month, and he's had some good moments, but he's learning that how much more difficult it is to play as a forward, a key forward than the key back. And I think it's a great move, for his long-term prospects at either end of the field. I think he'll end up being one of the better intercepting defenders in the competition, and he'll patrol the back half of the football field consistently for his team. But to know that he can go forward and do what he has done over the last 3 or 4 weeks is excellent. He was hot under the collar. He lost his cool. The melee at halftime, there was a couple of redeeming features. To come out after halftime and to go bang bang and kick the first couple of goals in the third showed that he was able to regulate emotionally. That whether it was coaching or whether it was individually, whatever had happened in that 20-minute break, he came out and had his head in the game, ready to come back and focus on the things that he could control, and he got them done. And then to be able to take that grab and finish after the siren, I thought that was huge. So what a great young talent he is. Not surprised that the Suns were able to produce a performance that was going to give themselves a chance to win, and not surprised that Essendon did a lot right to win the game, but then weren't ultimately able to do it. 1-9 in the last quarter.
And
you'd be bleeding.
That's it? Is that the result? You were saying off air that essentially Stringer kicks 3 points in the last quarter if he kicks 3 goals.
Well, I mean, if you're the coaching group at Essendon, probably, or even the supporting group, so we did a lot right. We dominated field position. We defended relatively well.
I don't think that's going to satisfy the Bombers.
No, it's not.
I've seen this movie before.
No, I understand it.
And with the Bulldogs losing, I mean, just everything compounding.
Yeah, but if you look at there are a lot of those things that you can't control that. When you're in the last quarter, it's 30 minutes of football. Essendon did a lot right in that 30 minutes of football, bar finish. So, yes, it feeds into a bigger narrative, but they're not thinking about that at the time.
There's a couple of Essendon players I'm ready to give up on.
All right, who's that?
I'm ready to give up on Nick Cox. I just am. And look, we take head injuries seriously and all of that, but maybe you're just not built to play footy. Like if you get knocked out from a knock such as that you are going to probably suffer 30 times in your career, maybe there's just something you make up. You're not quite prepared to play the game. And he's largely just not being competitive enough in any position. So for a high pick...
So you're putting that on him, or is it just his makeup?
I just think I think there's
there's
definitely a lack of competitiveness just intrinsic in his nature, and that is the case for some players that we've seen across the journey. Then your body just may not be prepared to play this game because the hit that concussed him, you're going to get that probably 50. You're probably going to get that once a game. I don't know, and Todd Marshall may be another one from Port Adelaide. Maybe you're just not built to play it because you should be able to, if you're going to be a long-term player, be able to cope with a knock such as that was very innocuous that you're going to receive a lot of times.
I think that is a case in point. I think the Essendon coaching staff have coached around those less thans pretty well and given Cox a fair run. I don't think he's a defender. The last sort of 4 or 5 weeks he's been played as a defender. When he was playing up on the wing, he was looking okay.
He looked okay.
But must have not been ticking the box.
It's to the point with
areas.
Essendon, though, when this continually happens, that you need to start weeding those players out that continually let you down. And some of his efforts before he was concussed just weren't good enough, and that was the case the previous week as well. Bombers fans, 1300 736 736. You've seen this movie before, I can't imagine. How are you feeling right now? And just that 2021 draft, you speak of Mac Andrew, he was pick 5, Dacos 4, Finn Callaghan 3, Sam Darcy 2, and Jason Horne-Francis 5. Maybe as good a top 5 as we have ever seen, that 2021
Well, that would
draft.
It'd be good to unpack that because we're not far down the line on that, and there's still, that'll only get better as time goes on.
Your last point?
Yeah, last point is just simply to highlight a couple of match winners from the weekend and projecting into September. Who are the players that are going to make the difference? I thought that Paddy Dangerfield's game against Freo and his willingness to do what needed to be done.
Refused to lose.
And his understanding of what needed to be done. And Isaac Heaney, can we start putting him in that category? Can he make a name for himself going forward? But I thought their last quarters were huge. So Danger missed a kick off the ground from 2 metres and a set shot on goal.
Yep.
Had 7 touches, but in the end, so that doesn't sound like, okay, so he's missed a couple of chances and he's had 7 touches. 7 touches, not a massive quarter. But you know that the feeling of what he gave, like the balls that he ripped out of stoppage, the willingness to do what had to be done and the ability to do that. He's a contested beast when a stoppage needs to be won. I don't reckon there's many in the comp that are going to will that stoppage or clearance to be won more than he
Best
is.
I've seen when the ball is in that sort of phone box. I think him and Fife,
back in the day,
Fife.
For me, it was Gavin Brown. No one was more desperate than a Gavin Brown in around a contest to win a contested ball or to halve a contest. But Dangerfield stays on his feet more, drives out a contest more. He'd be carrying 95 kilos, would he not? He'd be that hard to pull down. And his power and his speed and his aggression, I think that's great. Heaney doesn't play in the same way, but that last quarter, when it mattered, Heaney and Warner were huge. The game breakers, like a Cam Rayner, that sort of, it's having the body shape and ability to do it, and then it's having the want and the wherewithal. Maybe Geelong have got a couple there that are just going to make the difference when it counts. They've got experience in this space.
I'm not sold on that. I'm not sold.
No,
on that.
I don't know either. But
finals wild card is the question you're asking. Who can be that player and just pull one out of the box for a 3 or 4 game stretch to will your team over the line in September and get there, because it's one of those years. Bucks with the new ball this morning.
Yeah, so West Coast have won 2 games back-to-back. Jared Schofield has won 2 games back-to-back. Is he a legitimate candidate for the job from next year and beyond?
Yes, he is, to answer your question.
What type of character are we looking at?
Great character with a very good sense of humour, and has done a long, impressive apprenticeship to be in this position. So to coach your own team in the Waffle, had amazing success over there. Went to Port Adelaide and looked after the midfield with really good reports as well. Headed back to home to go to Perth and coach there. The caretaker sugar hit is the one. I'd love to see him get it. And as I said, he's absolutely worthy of really strong consideration. But we've seen it not work often.
So is it back to Paul Roos, the last time that a caretaker...
It actually worked,
has gone and won a premiership in the end.
Yeah.
If that's the...
Rhys Shaw, David Teague, Matty Primus, there's examples where
Jade Rawlings.
where it doesn't work. So, but with the lack of candidates as well, you've pulled out, a lot of others have pulled out. Maybe last man standing there, but we'll wait and see.
What about Kozzy Pickett's performance on the weekend? Does that validate what you were saying, or does it challenge it?
Well, I said during the week in the lead up to that game, does anyone have more talent and underperform versus their talent? Simon Goodman was asked about his amazing performance on Saturday night. His highest disposal count ever is 21. He's had 24 times. And he's been around the ball. It's not as if he's starving as a deep forward. He often goes to centre bounce. So
that's only a recent sort of.
Well, last 2 years, I reckon he's gone to centre bounce.
A little bit more, but centre bounce. But then he's what I see, he's asked to get back in front of the ball pretty quickly.
So grab a tape of Dylan Moore. Not that they're exactly the similar players, but in terms of the work rate, have a look at Brent Daniels and the work rate that is required to do this. And he's not going to have 20 and kick 4 every week, but I think he needs to impact games more often than what he has. But it was good to see him back in form.
Like talking about work rate and Dylan Moore, Pickett, like players in that role. Apropos of nothing, just looking at body shape. Now, this isn't shaming or anything. Body shape. Jack Ginnivan looks a fitter version of himself than he was 12 months ago, 24 months ago. And I think that he's covering the ground better. The other player that stood out to me on that ground was Elijah Hollins. Now, I don't know. He looks to me like he will still be maturing as a physical version of himself. But have a look at the impact that he's having now. If he puts his head down over the next 12 to 24 months and takes that next step, as you and I both know about that in the early stages of your career, you're working out how you get the best out of your body and you're still building that body. Like if he can do that, what a Ginnivan has done in the last couple of years, because he looked slim, fit. He's actually prepared to take the long sleeves off because he's got some shape in his arms for the first time in his life. I love seeing the progress of these players, and I suppose that's a challenge for a Kozzy Pickett. How can you've got the speed, you've got the agility. How do you improve your tank so you can add a layer to your game for your own betterment and the betterment of your team?
With Melbourne, that game style where you are not prepared to take any risk, none. I mean, they used to take actual risk out of stoppage, and they used to be powerful from stoppage and be able to score from stoppage. They're tracking worse every year since that 2021 premiership, and I'm just not sure at all whether this risk-adverse game style will ever win you a final. So you got to give them a tick for the planning, the execution, and taking away Port Adelaide's strengths on Saturday night. But, I mean, 17,000 in the house for that game. The crowds are off. They're not going to want to watch that. He needs to adjust his game style.
This is a real question without notice, because I haven't prefaced this with you off air. The vision you showed of Clayton Oliver not being able to chase down Zach Butters, surely that's not what he has been. So you don't expect him to be able to chase down Zach Butters because he wouldn't have done that.
He's lost all power. I think he used to be a powerful athlete. His first 5 to 10 metres was explosive. My point being that firstly it was the disposal which led to the turnover, which led to Zach Butters. So that is what you're seeing from Clayton Oliver now. He grabs the ball, he hacks it. And even like he has a free kick in the middle of the ground, he kicks it 30 metres straight down the middle of the ground. There's no penetration or power in his leg. And then he's getting exposed the other way was the point. We see Drew expose him. We see Crisp against Collingwood go to him at stoppage and then expose him the other way was the point.
Does it not highlight how important a pre-season is? Because all reports would suggest that he didn't have a great, obviously pre-Christmas was poor. Post-Christmas with injury concerns as well. I think it highlights the absolute narrow margins between being a significantly good AFL player and not making the level. And we can see that in a player like Clayton Oliver between what he's been and what he is at the moment. I don't have any doubts that he will, with a good
no doubts,
with a good pre-season under his belt. He has a talent base and a talent level and a consistency.
We know that. This is now 2 seasons of injury and interruption,
one and a half,
distraction and rumours and talk, and the club putting up for trade and then saying they haven't put him up for trade. I don't know. I think it's a bit more serious than just absolutely certain he's going to return to his best.
No, you wouldn't think that a good pre-season will have him back in form?
It'll help. I'm not convinced he's prepared to put in the work to get himself back to where he was.
I'll just note it down here. Also,
a lot of work.
Round 22 in 2025, I'll ask you about Clayton Oliver's form. All right.
Please do. When the pressure is off, when they're playing against sides that they are expected to lose against, they perform well. At the start of the year, the talk is, okay, we're in a regeneration mode. This list, we need to evolve the list. That was all designed to take the pressure off the club. And then when the pressure comes off the club because the expectation lowers because you started the season poorly, you perform. and then you go into a game against a bottom four side that you should win to keep your top four hopes and therefore your premiership hopes alive, and you serve that up, it says a lot to me about this group and not wanting the pressure that comes with being a very good side. And for them to be equal ninth with this list, it is one of the biggest disappointments of the year.
Are you serious?
Yep.
So you're going to the well again off the back of an outlier performance over the last 10 weeks.
An outlier
over the last 10 weeks.
What happened when last time they were in Adelaide? It's not an outlier.
Well, that's so
when the pressure has been off, when the expectations aren't there, they perform so well. And then when the pressure comes, they deliver that up yesterday.
In Adelaide.
Yes. Against the bottom four side.
So their performances in Adelaide are the outlier then?
Well, no. Did you witness the first half of the year? That just doesn't count, the first half of the year.
Well, it didn't count for Sydney for the last 6 weeks. It didn't count for Brisbane in their recent form. Well, the first seven wins for Geelong weren't replicated in the middle part of the year. GWS were
Brisbane are 2 points off fourth, and Sydney are on top.
So we're putting. Didn't you just said that Western Bulldogs are ninth? They're seventh.
I said they're equal ninth.
You're too good. I can't argue with you. You just keep.
Have you seen the Western Bulldogs
list? That means
list?
Carlton equals seventh. What are they so angry about?
Have you seen the Western Bulldogs list? Absolutely stacked.
Have you not? Do you not feel that they have regenerated?
How?
Well, they found some
because McRae doesn't play. Is that regenerating? Is it like with Sanders isn't playing? Where's the regeneration come from?
Richards as a midfield hadn't played midfield before.
Well, that's just shifting magnets. It's not regenerating your list.
Finding Williams on a wing and finding Poulter as a wingman to do that. No, he's been a halfback. Now he's on the wing. Finding Karmas and Lobb as intercept defenders.
It's hardly regenerating your list. It's shuffling some
Riley West continued improvement
should have
as
always
a player.
Been there.
You should coach.
I'm just suggesting, give me that list over any team in the comp right now. And if they fail to make the top four and therefore can't win the premiership, again, not finishing top four.
How many finals will the Western Bulldogs win this year? Will they win a final?
I think they'll win one final. Yeah,
and then get beaten in the semi.
Well, I don't know. We're projecting here, but depends.
Depends
if the pressure's on. Well, we're guessing. Depends if the pressure's on. If the pressure's off, they'll probably play well. If the pressure's on, they'll probably capitulate like they did yesterday against Adelaide, a bottom four side.
This
incredible.
It's great copy.
Incredible. You got any more?
Have we got any more?
Yeah.
Hey, yes, Daniel Rioli. Should Richmond? So he's in contract. Should Richmond put the foot down and say you cannot go?
No, I think they should. I think he's the one they can let go.
What will you get for him then? Because they don't have to. They can play. They can play hard.
So I think that's probably more the discussion around Bolton and how hard they play with him. But for Rioli, if there's a first round pick on offer for Richmond who desperately need that draft capital, then he's the one I'd be prepared to let go.
So Rioli, Bolton, Baker,
yeah, Graham,
others?
Graham a little bit. I mean, you could, whether someone comes hard for Tom Lynch, I don't know, at his age. There's a lot of moves that Richmond can make, but it's going to be a fascinating off-season, the most fascinating team this off-season in terms of what strategy they go.
So you'd let Rioli go?
I think so.
So he's going to win the BNF, is he not?
Yeah, but I mean, what does that mean? I mean, does that help you in 5 years' time? Like, whereas you may be able to get a pick 11 or 12. I haven't looked at Gold Coast and what they're prepared to give. That's going to be a 15-year player for the footy club. Anyway, Tigers fans.
That's in terms of list management. The Richmond challenge is as fascinating as any.
Agree.
To see what. And there'll be scuttlebutt here, there, and everywhere. But when the dust settles and they've made the decisions on those players, you won't get evidence of whether it's effective or not in 12 months. It'll be within 3 years. But, geez, there's going to be a lot happen, isn't it? Or may not happen.